Ever feel like you're just drowning in this, like, information overload? You know what I mean?
Totally. It's like drinking from a fire hose these days.
That's exactly it. And today we're diving into something really fascinating, the world of AI. Specifically, those large language models, LLMs, everyone's talking about.
Yeah, the ones that power those chatbots and stuff, they seem, I don't know, eerily smart sometimes.
Right. But are they really as smart as they seem?
Yeah.
That's what we're getting into today.
We're going beyond just, can it write a poem kind of thing. This deep dive is all about reasoning. Can these systems actually think like we do, step by step?
And to help us unpack all of this, we're diving deep into this research paper about a new benchmark test they're calling ProcBench.
ProcBench, catchy, right. But it's doing something really important. It's designed to test something called instruction followability in AI.
Okay, break that down for me. What's instruction followability in this context?
Basically, can an AI follow instructions without relying on, like, implicit knowledge we humans just get? Think of it like a recipe. You wouldn't just say, make a cake to someone, right?
Right, you'd give them the steps, the ingredients, all that.
Exactly. ProcBench is kind of like that, but for AI, it uses 23 different tasks, all about manipulating text, lists, numbers, that sort of thing.
So instead of baking a cake, the AI is, say, rearranging words in a sentence, or what's another example?
Sorting a list of numbers and then, like, picking out only the even ones and multiplying them together, something like that.
Oh, okay, I see. And then these tasks, they get harder, right? Like more steps, more complex instructions.
You got it. It's like starting with a pancake recipe and ending up with a multi-tiered wedding cake. Except instead of flour and sugar, we're talking code and algorithms.
I'm hooked already. So how do these AI systems actually do on these tests? Do they, like, ace it?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The AIs that are supposed to be the best at reasoning, like GPT-4 and that new one, O1 Preview, which, just so everyone knows, is another advanced model, kind of similar to GPT-4. They did pretty well on the simpler tasks, but
There's a but coming.
there is. Even they started messing up as the instructions got longer and more complex. It's like, imagine a master chef burning a simple dish because the recipe had too many steps. Kind of throws a wrench in things, right?
That is kind of shocking when you put it like that. So even the AIs that are supposed to be the best at this whole reasoning thing, they struggled when things got complicated. What does that tell us about how these systems are thinking, if that's even the right word?
Right. It really makes you think. It might mean that these LLMs, they're not as good at pure step-by-step logic as we thought. Like they might be leaning more on their massive knowledge base, you know, all that data they're trained on to recognize patterns instead of actually reasoning things out.
So like more like a super advanced search engine maybe than an actual human brain.
That's a great way to put it. Having all that information at their digital fingertips doesn't necessarily mean they can apply it logically in every situation.
So it's not just about cramming more and more data into these systems.
Right. And that's where it gets really interesting. It challenges that whole assumption that more data equals a smarter AI.
It's like the difference between memorizing a cookbook and actually understanding how to cook, right?
Perfect analogy. Just because you've read every recipe doesn't mean you can, you know, invent a new dish or fix it when something goes wrong. And that's kind of what we're seeing here with LLMs and this whole procedural reasoning thing.
Yeah, so it wasn't just any task that tripped them up. The researchers found that tasks that involved a lot of sequential steps, where like this thing has to happen, then this thing, and so on, those were particularly hard, especially when it came to messing around with text, like rearranging letters in a word or something.
Oh, I see. So it's like if you're putting together furniture and the instructions have you put like the bookshelf where the couch should go because you messed up a step early on. Exactly. And it kind of shows you a big difference between how we think as humans and how these AI systems are working right now. Like, we can usually tell when we've made a mistake, right? We can back up, we can adjust, use context clues.
Right, like you don't just keep building the bookshelf in the wrong place. You realize something's off with the instructions.
Exactly. But a lot of AI systems, at least how they are now, they're kind of stuck following those instructions in this really rigid, linear way. They haven't quite grasped that dynamic problem-solving thing we humans do.
It's like the difference between, I don't know, following a recipe exactly versus actually understanding how baking works. You know, a human baker could be like, okay, the oven's running hot, got to adjust the temperature, or these ingredients aren't quite right, I need to tweak this. But an AI might just follow the instructions blindly, even if the cake is burning.
100%. And that's why this whole ProcBench thing is so important. It's not just, look, AI messes up sometimes. It's about figuring out how they mess up so we can build better, more flexible systems.
So we're talking about building AI that can not only follow the rules, but also know when to, like, break them or bend them to actually get things done.
Exactly. We want AI that can handle the real world, not just some perfect test environment.
Okay, so fascinating stuff. But let's bring it back down to earth a little. I imagine some folks listening are thinking, cool, but what does this actually mean for me? Can you give us some concrete examples of how this research could change our everyday lives?
Absolutely. Think about those AI assistants everyone's using now. Let's say you ask your AI assistant to, I don't know, help you plan a trip, book your flights, hotels, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds convenient.
Right. But now imagine your flight gets canceled or the hotel's overbooked. A human travel agent would be like, no problem, I got this, here's some other options. But a less advanced AI might just short circuit, it doesn't know how to handle that curveball.
That's a really good point. So we're not just talking about AI that can follow instructions, but AI that can roll with the punches when things inevitably go wrong, which, let's face it, happens all the time.
Exactly. And it's not just about assistance. Think about self-driving cars. We need those things to not only follow the rules of the road, but also make judgment calls when, say, a kid runs into the street. Or think about medical AI, diagnosing patients. Accuracy is everything in those situations.
Right. A wrong diagnosis could literally be life or death.
Exactly.
So it seems like we're on the edge of some really big changes, but we need to be really careful as we go. This isn't just about pointing out the flaws in AI, though, right? There's got to be some good news here. What are you most excited about when it comes to the future of AI and all this?
Oh, for sure. I think the most exciting thing is that research like this, it helps us understand the different ways AI systems think, We're starting to see where they shine, where they struggle, and that means we can build more specialized AI that's really good at specific things.
So instead of trying to build one AI to do it all, it's more like having a whole team of experts, each with their own strengths.
Exactly. Like, imagine having an AI that's a whiz at medical diagnosis, but maybe it's not so great at planning trips, That's okay, because we have other AIs that are awesome at that.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about harnessing the power of AI in a way that actually makes our lives better, not just trying to recreate ourselves in silicon.
100%. And that's why this research on instruction following is so huge. It's not just about building smarter AI. It's about building AI that's actually useful, AI we can trust, AI that can work with us to, build a better future and all that. So one big thing is building these new benchmarks, new ways of testing that go beyond just can you follow these instructions?
So not just seeing if the AI can follow a recipe, but if it actually understands what it takes to bake a cake from scratch.
Exactly. Can it handle ambiguity in the instructions, adapt when things go wrong, and that kind of stuff. We want to know if it can reason about goals, not just tasks,
That sounds really hard to test, actually. How do you even design a test for that kind of thinking?
Yeah, it's tricky, but one thing researchers are trying is using these game-like scenarios. So instead of just giving the AI a list of instructions, you put it in this simulated environment where it has to, figure things out on its own.
Oh, that's interesting. So less like following a recipe and more like being given some ingredients and having to come up with a dish on the fly?
Exactly. And by doing that, you can see how well the AI can, plan ahead, strategize, deal with unexpected stuff. It reveals a lot more about how it reasons than just seeing if it can follow steps 1 to 10.
Wow. So we're not just teaching AI to follow instructions. We're teaching it to think for itself. That's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Totally. And it's why this whole field is so exciting. We're really pushing the boundaries of what AI can do, and who knows what we'll discover along the way.
I know. It's like we're on the verge of this whole new era of AI, right?
Yeah.
One that's less about, task completion and more about, understanding.
Totally. And hopefully that understanding will lead to AI that's not just powerful, but also beneficial for everyone, which is kind of the whole point.
Absolutely. But before we go too far down that road, let's bring it back to our listeners. What are some things they should keep in mind living in this world where AI is becoming more and more common?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think the biggest thing is to be really aware of what AI is good at and what it's not good at.
Right. Don't just blindly trust everything an AI tells you.
Exactly. Ask questions, be skeptical, and remember, AI is a tool.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for, well, not so good.
Exactly. So we all need to understand these tools, how they work, and what their limitations are.
So we can make sure AI is being used responsibly, ethically, all that good stuff.
100%. And the more we learn about AI, the better equipped we'll be to do just that.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. It's been amazing exploring all this with you.
Likewise. It's always fun to geek out about AI, you know?
Always. And for our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of AI reasoning. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking questions, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.